Very good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We are happy once again to be in this shared reality.
We are very happy for you to be here.
Very good. Do you have some questions for us to ask?
Yes. So first, let me say it's a pleasure to have this interaction with you. I would like to have an interaction with you, and while I was setting the intention for this interaction, I bumped into something that you said previously. You said, don't go to the battle with a will. Go with your emotions and see how the will turns out. So, I guess my intention for this interaction is in part not having an intention, but try to keep a conversation, a candid conversation with you. And it might take a personal turn if it happens that way. I guess the first, maybe before we dive into any specific, subjects, maybe could you introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, we want to thank you for allowing yourself to bring our teachings closer to you and be willing to be working with them and implement them into your thinking patterns. Our introduction of ourselves would be very basic, as we don't want to go into many details which would create questions which we would not be willing to answer, to be honest. We'll say this. On your world, we'll go, generally speaking, by the name of Pleiadians. It is coming from the star system which you do call the Pleiades. We are non-physicals, we are beings of, we'll just use the term now, high consciousness which has evolved into the form where we are not bound to physicalities as time and body, and it also creates a certain form of our thinking about, let's say, we experience freedom in a much more grander level than you do. Unless you would have any specific question about us, who we are and how we are, we would say this is the introduction we do give.
Thank you. Yeah, so before I start the conversation, is there any off topic from this conversation, or is there any subjects that may be hard for you to touch because, what I'm trying to understand, is there any message that you'll probably not be able to convey because may affect with our free will?
Yes, there's many of them. We will see, from our perspective, we see it quite the opposite way. There is just a fine line of the topic or subject you would say we are willing to go into, or we are allowed to discuss right now. You see, your perception, your focus, you feel it like this is the big thing which you are talking about, those questions in your lives and your experiences in this world, let's say. But from our perspective, it's a very small part of the bigger picture, you would say. Alright, so we'll say this, we will not right now exclude any subject, but if we will get into a point where we are hitting on something we don't really want to talk about, we will let you know.
Okay.
So from your perspective, we want you to feel, on the contrary, we do want you to feel the openness of asking whatever you want to ask. Alright, don't put the boundaries from your side,
Sure.
because we are those who do see and who do realize the boundaries. So if you will hit it, then we will let you know.
So maybe I will start with some questions to understand the bigger picture from my perspective, which might not be as bigger as you perceived. And then maybe I'll try to do some more personal questions. So to start with, I would like to maybe understand a little bit the agreements and contracts that are set up before we project ourselves into this physical reality.
We will stop you right there because the understanding should be changed.
Okay.
Somebody could say we are nitpicking, but from our point of view, it's very, very crucial that you understand these points. Alright, well, let's say that some parts are set before you come into these bodies, into these realizations, but we do need to say that a huge part of, well, now we'll call it the contract. Huge part of the contract is interchangeable, and it is changing all the time. You see, we'll say this. Let's imagine a plant growing somewhere in the forest or in a meadow, whatever. The plant, just like you, has its ability to reply, to respond to the environment. Not all is said. It's not all written that this dog and wolf will come over and pee on the plant. Alright? But if it does happen, the plant has its own tools how to respond to it. The same to the weather conditions, to a hurricane, or to some other environmental aspects of the life of the plant. So do you. So let's say now we'll put it into the hands of your higher being, of your higher self. You do have the ability to change the course of your evolutionary path. That's why in one of those previous recordings we have said that we'll use the term gently again. The life purpose can be changed from a moment to moment. You are, in a way, because we know you have been working in the IT department, we know from our VHS files, you are able to update yourself within the range on what is coming to you and what has happened to you. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Alright. So
you see, we have the free will to somehow shift our potentials, but
it's
Natures.
we can't go through this
Okay.
statement because your free will is not to be changing your potential. It doesn't work this way. Your free will is generally said to be saying to be talking about your decision making, which then slightly can change the potential, but the potential is just given. Potential is given. Your free will is how you go through it.
I see.
Alright.
I see. So, if I may just take a step back, even before the setting up the contracts and agreements, which they are what they are. So, even the decision of coming forward into this physical reality, is that decision based on our past experience where we are, at that moment? Is that decision trying to benefit the purpose of the expansion, or is just a spontaneous act of free will, if I may, from the higher self to project into this reality?
We'll say this. Not the first one, a little bit of the second one, and big part of the third one. Alright, the first one was, is it based on those previous lifetimes? No. It's not based on them because they are happening simultaneously. They are happening together with this life. It cannot be based on what is happening right now, because let's say if we would be really talking in the sci-fi terms of our understanding, we could say that you have never died because you still live your life in all of these, what you call past lives. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So if none of these past lives has been finished, you can't base anything on it. But we will say it is largely connected to those. And we also include the future lives. You see, from our point of view, we see it as a flower which has many blossoms on many little branches. Do you understand?
Yes.
So, and if you are the middle one, you are connected to those and to those as well. But you don't base your experience or your contract for this experience on those, because there's not much to be basing it on. Alright? The second version of your answer was, remind us.
The second.
You were giving us a question and you were
giving
saying
possibilities.
3 possibilities. And
Yes. I guess the second possibility was because it serves the purpose of expansion of
yes,
my higher self, or even the expansion of all that is.
of the purpose of the soul. This is
Okay.
general statement how we would say it. It implies very much in your reality, yes. And the third one was for the expression of all that is, right? That also applies. We will say a soul, as it's a bigger, part of who you are right now, has some, we don't want to say the purpose again, but let's say it has some intentions you want to realize and experience and discover, let's say. And those contracts, those what you are setting up for yourself, are based on those. But because of the soul, as we said before, one of the previous recordings, has many parts of its realization here, or also in other worlds. It doesn't put everything on one person's shoulders. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So imagine just for the sake of the explanation, the soul would be projecting itself into 12 people. Perhaps within a different timelines, but let's say just like with 12 people. Some parts would be projected into this person. And because of the understanding and realization what the soul has through this person, it can somehow evolve the contracts for you as another one, but it's all happening together and together.
This is so interesting. So, would it be possible for the soul, I think that's the term that you're using for the soul, to be, right now, let's just as an example say my soul is experiencing this life, this experience, but is also maybe able to be experiencing in another dimension or in another reality, another, other experiences that are shaping, at every single moment the intention. So other lives may be affecting my life right now as well.
Oh, very much, very much. Your another parts of yourself. This is how we would call the interconnections between the different people of the same soul. All right, and the parts of yourself in, or if you want to call it yourself in another reality, has a strong connection with you. And many times it happens that during the dream state, you are connecting to this and you are updating your database on what has happened and what can be happened forward. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Let's say this. You live in the inclusion-based universe. Alright? As we said, everything is accumulating on its own. One way how to put it is that let's say you call it the creator or everything it is getting to know itself more and more and more. That's the inclusion. Alright? But then you have to realize that there is no reason, unless for different reasons, but there is no reason to be repeating itself. There is no reason for the soul to be experiencing the same things over and over again. If there is a possibility, there is a chance of creating a new environment, a new playground with new players and new things around, the soul goes for the new experience as much as it can. Alright?
Wow.
So within the dream state, you also update yourself, and that's where the life purpose can be changed, where the steps are tweaked. When your soul realizes, okay, I've already experienced this thing through somebody else, through another part of me, so thus I do not need to be experiencing and probing into this topic within this person anymore. Thus I'll move forward. Do you understand?
Yeah. So when you say that it's easy to do the database download to tap into this other experience through the dream state, is because there's a state where we release more resistance. And so I guess my question is, if someone, even not in a dream state, if it would release enough resistance, could someone in their, daily day tap into these other experiences, or, have some benefit from...
Let's divide these into because from our point of view, you are mixing things which don't really go together. The topic what we were talking about a second ago is what is happening at the back of the house, right? What's happening automatically. The updates are automatic. Do not, and there is many times, we would say most of the time, there is no reason for you to consciously keep or even tap into the memory of the experience. Alright? But we will say, and it has been happening to more and more people lately because of the changes you and your world are going through, more people are having these more conscious connections to your other selves, especially people who are experiencing and experimenting. That's what we want to say. We want to use experimenting with the, let's say, recording their dreams, who are training their mind to be more conscious of what you are experiencing in these times. You are able to see yourself, let's say, having another job or having different path than somewhere else, and you know it's not really you, yet it is you. Many often these versions of yourself keep the same physical appearance. Your second part was about releasing resistance within these dream states. That's why we want to differentiate these two. One thing is what is happening automatically within yourself and what is updating yourself. Then another very different subject is about releasing resistance. We wouldn't really call releasing resistance to be a conscious thing what you do within the dream state, because the resistance is so much bound to your beliefs and values, which do not most of the time do not change within the dream state. If we would say it very plainly, you are watching movies when you dream. Hardly ever anything changes there. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So what is the question you actually want to ask us?
Oh, right now my mind is just blown with all this information, which I really appreciate. And I also appreciate how you're communicating in some terminology that I can understand.
Yes.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is how this information, how can I benefit from this information on my like daily life? How could I do something, or when I say myself, I mean how can we as human beings do something on our daily lives that, you know, not only in dream state, that could benefit us from knowing this information.
Yes. That's what we like answering, because that's something what you will feel will benefit you. Well, so what can you do? Well, first of all, we are sure you've heard us saying it many times, mind your own business. Within this, we will say, if you can, forget the topic of life purpose. And because we have been talking about it quite a lot, and you have been interested in this subject as well, we know it's not so easy to forget it. That's why we will tell you, every day, if you get yourself thinking, what is my life purpose, what should I be doing, you do have to remember that this is interchangeable. There is no one big thing you came here to do. That's why we say, forget the life purpose, but focus on how you feel. You see, you all have your, we will say the term blueprint, which does include also what you are talking about, those contracts and other things as well, if you say. But the blueprint is within you and with you all the time. The way how to tap into the blueprint and the way how to allow it to blossom as the flower would blossom if it gets everything it needs, the sun, the water and the soil or whatever. The way how to tap and let the blueprint blossom is by first of all tapping into your feelings, recognizing it, and allowing yourself to feel better. Which talking about life purpose does not do. Simple as it is.
Yes.
Because those who do talk about life purpose are most of the time those who do not feel they are doing it. If you will see a person who lives the dream life, doing what she loves doing and having everything she wants to have, this person will hardly ever talk about the life purpose. If they are happy, then that's what they need, that's what they want, and that's what all of you, most of you would say, are striving for. Alright? So if you do catch yourself thinking about wasting your potential and not being aligned with your life purpose, just get off the subject and go to your emotions and find in that moment, what can you do to feel better, happier?
Mm-hmm.
And probing and asking more questions about life purpose and how to get to know it is not the answer.
Mm-hmm. So,
we will say one thing before we will let you continue. The blueprint. What was the word for that? Concludes, the blueprint has its own mechanism of expressing itself. Which we do have to point this in. Because the blossom of the blueprint doesn't flower only if you tap into yourself. That's not the only way, what we are saying here. It will express itself anyway throughout your life. It will. By the crack of least resistance. It always works. But this is just a faster way how allow it to go within your physical reality and your life, alright? Go on.
So, when you mentioned crack of resistance or the release of resistance, it's the concept and the idea we may be able to grasp, but in reality, sometimes, it's not easy to release this resistance. Nowadays, here on the earth, there's so many spiritual teachings, if I may say, or a lot of tools that people are offering. And, there's plenty of things to choose, and, some of these tools may need to be personal, may work for you or may not work for others. But I believe at this point there's like maybe a paradox in the tools that are being provided to crack the resistance. And maybe if I could hear your thoughts on what I perceive, it might not be even a paradox. So it seems on one hand there's some teachings and some tools that say that you should be focusing in the moment, living in a moment, being in the now, which is the idea of being in the now takes you out of the now. But yeah, so there's that stream of thought of trying to disidentify it with the things, or maybe be I know I'm putting a lot of a lot of questions in this, but yeah, there's this stream of thought and these tools to try for you to be in the present moment. And then there's, the other stream of tools, which is more, doesn't matter what you do, you will always have desires, and you will always be closing the emotional gap and, closing the resistance, and then you're going to throw another desire. So it's like inevitable, the emotional roller coaster of this process. So, and I'm like facing life with like a lot of different tools and a lot of different teachings, and sometimes I'm not sure, where to start or which ones should work for me. What will be?
And it's overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes can be. Yeah.
The number of things you haven't done yet.
Yes.
Do we not feel a guilt there?
Yes, sometimes.
Does guilt help you or not?
I guess not.
We will ask you again, does guilt help you or not? You don't need to guess for that.
To be honest, at some point, because I feel guilt, I feel like, oh, screw it. And I find some resistance on that. When I don't know what to do, sometimes it's like, I might just not do anything and just, and sometimes there's a little bit of release of resistance on that moment. But yeah, I guess guilt in general wouldn't help me.
We will start from the beginning. Again, from our point of view, it's important to differentiate those two what we are talking about. The resistance going through the crack of release resistance and releasing resistance. From our point of view, they are two different things. The first one would very much be bound to the last part of your talk. The crack is happening on its own. You don't really need to be doing anything on a conscious level for that. What we mean by it is, generally speaking, and we don't want to make it to be a big thing, but generally speaking, you do more, or most of you are including within your range some resistance, and that's a normal and understandable thing. And when the crack happens is what is not going within your conscious doing. Let's say you do have the resistance and you're not really working with it, and you're not doing any releasing, any conscious releasing, but then you are standing on a bus stop and you overhear a conversation of two people, and you just hear them talking about some event, and you know, oh, I do want to go there. I didn't know it is in my town next Sunday. This is the crack of least resistance, how, let's say, the part of the blueprint is coming out. Alright? Or if somebody just gives you a free ticket for the event. What we mean is it's a creation seemingly done from outside.
Mm-hmm.
Alright?
Mm-hmm.
And second thing, from our point of view quite different, is conscious releasing of the resistance you have, which goes from inside, of working with your mindset and working with your emotionality.
Okay.
Do you understand the difference?
I understand the difference, but I would think that even outside influence, if you may say, of our emotional self would be somehow created from how we feel internally.
It is connected to it, and it's connected to but we don't want you to be carrying all the responsibility for your life. You see, your higher self is not working from within the frame of your personality, because the personality is created mostly by your mindset. Do you understand? And your memories.
Yes, I understand.
So your higher self is using these cracks to, we'll just say it gently here, to get you where it wants you to get, where it wants to get you.
Mm-hmm.
Alright? And also you have many helpers within this life. Whether you call them spirit guides or another beings, not the extraterrestrial beings who are here to help you and assist you. Let's say from whatever reasons, and they are changes, but they do want you to experience your blueprint as fully as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want you to feel like you are doing all the job, because it is not true. The personality is a very small part of what is actually here. Mm-hmm. Alright. The second part, the releasing resistance. Yeah, generally you are hitting on something what has been growing and growing within this the Western society of more teachers or guides popping up, and with these processes and techniques. Yes, it is growing in numbers, but we have to say, just as the variety of the people here is growing in numbers. Years ago, and we would say, let's say 80, from 80 years ago, way back further, there were only few types of mindset which people would be holding on. Alright? Because of the environment was more straightforward. But with all the options you are given or you have created for yourself in last 100 years, let's say, and we have to include this as well, we have also with the transformation you are going through, There are huge numbers of different mindset, different versions of the blueprint you are carrying. There used to be just, we will say this plainly, just the plain humans here. Not anymore. You are being mixed. You are being mixed with some other new versions. We will say this plainly, new versions of yourself. Our favorite subject here, but maybe for another time. So yes, that's what creates firstly it creates the vibrational reality of so many flowers popping up in the same forest. And then what was the vibrational answer for it? People coming up with different ideas. Yes, you could be one of these people who go through the bookshelves and read every single book, and then they are doing 31 days of this and then that. It's one of the ways, and people often find in themselves having a connection with many of these experiences, or just being selective, and that's what we want to tell to you. Be selective and don't do everything. Doing everything will most likely bring you on the edge of lowering the resistance anyway, but there is no reason to put your focus and energy and time, because you do value your time very much with your lives. There is no reason to go about it this way. Pick one. What is the easiest one for you to do? We know you don't want to be seen from your eye as a lazy person, but we will tell you, pick the easiest one.
Okay.
And do as little, I will say it again, do as little as you can to release the resistance. Resistance within you, we are talking in general terms, is not stored in bricks.
Got it.
Alright? You don't have to be hammering it and drilling and everything. It can be quite simple, it can be quite fun. The main thing what we will say is you must feel it. When you are doing a process, a technique, and you don't feel difference within your emotionality, don't do it.
Okay.
Which of course includes, first of all, being open to what you feel and being able and willing to tap into the emotional self. For many people, they have decided to close off themselves from the emotionalities for many reasons. And then most of the techniques, or we would say none, but we will say more, most of the techniques will not work, because once you do not feel the changing points within the emotionality, you are not releasing the resistance. You would not encourage anyone to be doing any exercises for more than 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
Because then you become a resistance releaser, which will always make you to focus on the resistance again. It's a wonderful job and thing to do to release resistance, but you have to realize while you do it, for the fun which you will have with the least amount of resistance. That's why we say give it some short time, but then go and have fun. Have fun, and maybe you, after another 6, 7, 8 months, you will find yourself that you still do have some resistance, maybe some new, some still old from the previous times, and you can go within your favorite techniques again. But you must allow yourself to have fun and to experience the world through you, not through releasing resistance all the time.
Yeah.
It is not desirable that you would get rid of the resistance. Well, you will when your body dies, but that's why you live your life, not to die tomorrow. Do you understand?
Yes.
Did we answer the question?
It did answer the question. I could go into more specifics, but I don't know if it's relevant.
Go and we'll tell you.
Because the way we are raised and the way, kind of the society programs our brain is quite... I know this is dangerous.
We'll let you go through, but we will tell you that we don't agree with the statement, but we will let you go through.
Yes, of course there's a lot of free will, but what I'm trying to say is I get it, be lazy as possible, but sometimes when I go about my day and I try, to be lazy, I know that what I'm going to say is a dangerous statement, but, somehow my brain might be wired in a certain way that I always, need to, sometimes I get bored and I need to go through my social media to do all these, daily tasks or trying to learn new things or, and even I know that sometimes, the answer is not more information, but somehow, the brain is wired in a certain way. So my question is, if I want to be lazy and just have fun and just be careless free, how would I train myself to be in that state? Because right now, sometimes it's hard for me to go into a careless free state, if you know what I mean.
Yes, and this is what we want to say. We don't want you to think that we want you to be lazy. We want you to be careless. This is what you said.
Mm-hmm.
We're not encouraging for laziness, but for carelessness.
Yes.
But be lazy with yourself while you're doing the processes. That's what we said.
Okay.
And we will say this to you because it is quite obvious to us from what you're saying. Perhaps you are carrying around a resistance to laziness.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Your brain is... well, we have many names for that, but let's say it's as a sponge. It can be programmed in many different ways. And we do not agree with the statement how the society programmed your brain. Yes, your environment is affecting you in a huge way, especially from the way of upbringing, from the way how your parents and your environment within the first 14 or 21 years has allowed you to form your personality, let's say. But these things can be changed. We would hardly ever encourage people to be changing people into a certain mindset. It's most of the time from ourselves. It's exploring the mindset and then be changing it for the way how it fits you. But within this talk, we would say to not to only you but to many of you, because it's been progressively growing within your society to be a goal-oriented people, to be striving for achievements, and whether you define the achievements to be on a physical level as money, status, and things which surround you, or on the more emotional thing, you are achievers. You are set to be achievers. Set by, let's say, what you are talking about. You said the society and the upbringing, but within this talk we would say, do try to get out of this mindset. You are not here to achieve.
But is not that an achievement itself? So if couldn't be seen as a goal for me to try to be careless, and could I not go into the bad habits of, trying to do something in order to be careless, or trying to be like worry free, and that will be like a goal that I would take upon myself, and therefore bringing a bit more resistance?
It does bring more resistance, and this is what we are saying. That the question is whether you are able, or we will now say specifically to whether you are allowing yourself to bring up the wiring, the beliefs, why you need to feel, to get yourself, to busy yourself with anything. And that would be the answer, would be the core, what you want to be looking for. Why you need to feel occupied most of the time.
I get it. Oh, that's beautiful. So, you were also saying that the first years of our lives, shape, not all of it, but in part, shape our personality.
It creates the virus, the structure there, not the whole structure, but it creates, let's say it would create a huge part of the soil the plant is planted in. And then the plant is growing from the soil, if it makes sense.
So from your perspective, in the asking why I feel a certain way, why do I feel those emotions, do you think it's relevant for us to try to tap into this, past experience when we were younger, try to understand if the emotions, what's the source of these emotions?
We wouldn't encourage people. It's a hard subject, but generally said, we would not encourage people to go into the event to be reliving the event. You see, whatever the event was, it created the structure, the connection between these two. You could call it the belief, which could have been maybe posed as a core belief. But it created the connection between these two. For changing the connection and rewiring, we don't really want to say breaking, because it kind of has to be connected to something if it's there. But for changing it, you don't really have to go for the event, because we can do more harm than good many times. Okay. Because there is very few people who would be able to guide you through the process of safe path of reliving the event and then having a different connection from it. All right, you have to understand. You live in 2016, but hardly anybody of you has been told how to work with the emotionality of yourself. This is a subject for maybe generations after. But it is good to know where the connections are coming from, and this is why we are also telling you about this stuff. But it is not safe, for, generally speaking, for you guys to go into these emotions and try to play with that. It's very fragile.
So when the emotion comes, so let's say right now I feel anxiety.
All right.
So what should I do? Just stay with the anxiety, not trying to ask why I have the anxiety? What will be like the emotional process?
All right. Yeah. We'll say. You said also a few seconds ago, and we didn't get a chance to react to it. All the emotions you have, whether it's joy, whether it's anxiety or anything else, are connected to the wiring you have there. To the wiring which is more logic based. It's not like it would make sense, because many times you discover your beliefs that do not make sense on a logical level. But they are, let's say, they could be as a sentences. Put it into your brain. And your emotions are the response of your emotionality to the sentence, let's say, to the belief. Does it match or does it not match? Does it align or does it imply that some other sentence there, some other belief will be activated? It's a little bit of the plane of going with the train, being on the train, and let's say imagine you do have the power before the intersection to say the train goes left and next time it goes right. But because you do not see what is actually how the structure is wired in your brain, you know not where you end up. Do you understand? On your map, on your map of your, let's say, country, you are able to see that if you take 3 lefts and 1 right, you will end up somewhere else, but not with your brain, because you're not aware of it. And you cannot be aware of all the connections. It would be too much, and you're not able to process these informations. Or what you are able to do is to recognize the connection within a stream of a single emotion. If it's anxiety, it comes with, generally said, it comes with fear. It comes with something strongly going against each other. Will you allow us to go through it with you?
Please do.
And anytime you can raise your hand, even though we do not see it, but you can raise your hand and you can say, do not wish to go any further. All right.
Okay.
So you say you feel anxiety. Do you feel it right now?
I feel right now.
Because of?
Because for me it's a big pleasure to have this experience and this interaction. Something.
Politeness aside, let's go to it.
No, but I guess I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I have this idea, this illusion of trying other people to like me.
Yes.
So I feel right now the heaviness and the responsibility of having, for instance, a good interaction with you. And it creates a bit of anxiety within myself. I feel like my brain is with a very fast speed, if I may, and just feels a bit, a bit anxious.
Well, we'll tell you this. Not because of Papa, but because of yourself. You're not giving us, and you're not giving yourself the full story.
Okay.
What's the full story? You feel anxious because?
Because this is going to be a very dangerous statement, but because I feel like I'm not doing the things that I was supposed to be doing.
Like, are you talking about washing dishes?
I'm talking in general in my daily life. I feel like I'm somehow, and I know this is like an illusion because we are always on purpose, but I feel like I'm wasting my life. I'm spending a lot of hours doing a job that I like, but I don't really care about. And while I could do something, working, on doing something more fun and more fulfilling, if I may. So it feels somehow that it feels somehow that I'm not on the right path, or I'm not taking totally full ownership of my life. And I know this is a very dangerous statement in itself, and maybe that creates anxiety that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, we do thank you for your honesty. We still feel there are certain things unsaid, but let's say for now we'll say as guides or teachers we could say that you are all on your path.
Yeah.
How annoying is that? How annoying is that? We'll say this to the millions of others who might hear this, or the millions who just feel it on the vibration levels. If we would go within your wiring, within your structures, we would say most of you are not on your path. And that's the beauty of it. You see, you have to realize. And this is a wonderful discussion because it includes the topic we were talking about previously. Your blueprint, many times, the essence of the blueprint is said to be very simple. If we would say an example, it would be feel happy, grow up, find this or this partner, feel happy, have 2 or 3 children, be happy, go for the holiday, see the shop, realize that you love doing what the person is doing, go home, stop the shop for yourself, and live happy life forever after. It is simple. And if there was no resistance, if we'll now use your terms, very thankful for that, if the society wasn't programming you the way it was, you would be accomplishing your blueprints within the first 35 years of your life. Well, then you will have the questions, why do I live up to 20, up to 90? Do you understand? You would be done when you are 32 if there was no resistance. So why is your body programmed to live 3 times longer than that? For the beauty of enjoying the ride. We'll say this again, what we said in the previous recordings. Your mindset is set to be achievers. And very often you are judging your steps within your age. I'm 35 and I haven't got this and this and that, and I'm 48, I haven't got this and there's always something what you haven't done. Because this is how this is connecting. If you're moving into achieving, we'll use it very gently, the statement. If you are moving into achieving of the part of a blueprint, you are being updated for the next step. There's always a next step. The soul wants to experience itself as greatly as it can, because this is very rich universe for the emotional experiences. So let's say, even if you would be one of those rare examples which blueprint is achieved in, we'll say now, in the age of 35, you will get another part to play. It's not that somebody is forcing you, it's always connected to, let's say, your past within the same body and within your hobbies or interests. But you're never done. You understand?
So it would be accurate to say that the blueprint is also always evolving?
That's what we said. That's why we are saying that you are updating yourself all the time.
And there's no harm or no wrong if you get to be 90 and you don't fulfill your blueprint.
It is wrong only if you define it to be wrong.
Okay.
You see, and perhaps you are not able to relate to it as much because of your young age, but people who are in retirement, they do 2 things. They either give up, and they are enjoying what they have, and we are using the term giving up in a very, very nice, positive meaning. Or they are still playing to be the strivers. Do you understand? The strivers to achieve another thing before I die.
Yes.